Welcome to West Coast Woman Power with your host, Alexis Taylor Middleton. Alexis Taylor Middleton created West Coast Woman Power to share in the traditional Mayan and Cherokee teachings of self-realization, empowerment, and personal wisdom through shared stories.
Hello. Welcome to West Coast Woman Power. I'm your host, Alexis Taylor Middleton. And we have with us a very special guest today, Astrology with Mo. This is Mo.
Hello.
And
Alexis.
welcome.
Thank you for having me.
Just my pleasure, absolutely. I understand that you have quite a gift in understanding astrology. And I would love very much with you here to share with all of us the value of astrology and how it can, in essence, heal. How it can heal relationships, how it can heal mindsets, how it can heal blocks that someone might be encountering in their life.
Okay. Yeah, I'd be happy to share. I guess I should put some context into how long I've been studying astrology. I've been practicing psychology for over 25 years in a private practice and doing traditional psychotherapy. And it wasn't until about 10 years ago where I really started. I've been studying astrology for about 20 years, but about 10 years ago I got really serious. And I started to recognize the gift that astrology has in my actual practice. So I would, on occasion, bring it into a session with the client if they were willing, and look at their natal chart and see if I could help explain what was going on in their life or the struggles that they were having with a different perspective, in a new way. So I have found, certainly in the last few years, I have been able to make dramatic shifts with the people that I see by just looking at their natal chart and giving them an understanding of what's happening.
I would love to know, what is a natal chart? I can't even pretend to know. What is that?
Well, we're all born at a certain time. We all know, well, most of us know our birth times. If we're lucky, we'll know our birth times, but some of us don't. But we all know that we're born on a certain day. Like, for instance, January 5th, 1982. So we know the day that we're born. If you know the time that you're born, or pretty close to the time that you're born, you get what's called a natal chart, which is like a blueprint of exactly where the stars were the moment you were born. And this is such a huge gift because it will show you basically the blueprint of your life. And you can work with the natal chart, which will show your, the stars, Mars and Venus and Neptune, and they're all placed in certain houses in an astrology chart. And when you understand where your planets are, it will give you sort of a window into your life and your soul's purpose and what you're here on this earth for.
And this is really key, this information that you're sharing. And I want you to know that Mo, with her astrology, helped bring clarity when I was feeling quite anxious about some decision making. And I went to her to understand, and forgive me, the natal chart and all these different things, they keep going over my head. But she helped me immensely. So I would love to know from you, when people are going through like a life change, it could be a divorce, it could be a change in work relationships, family relationships, how does this help? how does this bring about some understanding, calming the anxiety, in essence, perhaps bringing healing for people?
Mm-hmm. What I love about astrology, it's non-judgmental. It is what it is. So I have sat with, for example, you said women that are, for divorce. So I've sat with women of divorce and gone through many, many sessions going through the hurt and the anger and the resentment and the betrayal. And it could go, I do make progress over time. But I found when I asked this one particular woman, may I please introduce your natal chart and see what's happening in your chart and with the transits that are going, and see if we can have some perspective on this very difficult time that she was having. And so the transits that are happening, the current transits of the planets, what they're doing right now.
What's a transit?
Well, a transit is like, for instance, that's a great question. A transit is when a planet is going through a certain house or a sign. So today, for instance, being September 14th, Mars, which is the fiery, feisty planet, moved into the sign of Libra. So when you know that a planet has moved into a certain sign, it gives you information. It gives you clues into what kind of energy it's bringing. So what I do is I help people navigate those energies. Is I will say, look, you have Mars that maybe moved, or sitting in your 7th house of relationships and partnerships and marriage. And that will bring a certain energy to your life. And knowing where those planets are and understanding them is key to helping you navigate some pretty difficult times.
This fascinates me because I had spent 9 years studying with Cherokee and traditional elders and learning about vibration and the kinetics and energy of healing, and that it can come from drumming and ceremony and meditation. What you're sharing, it's so eye-opening. It takes looking at how we can navigate life in such a totally different perspective.
Absolutely.
So what would you suggest to the youth of today who are going through immense anxieties from this pandemic? They've gone through huge changes with their social groups. Their peers have, a lot of them, they had to have at-home classrooms. Still, a lot of them in university have online. Some are getting vaccinated, some are not, so there's divisions being made. There's just all sorts of chaos that's taking place for them. What would you say to them about astrology and how it can support with what they want to do, where they're going, how they're feeling?
Right. I love to speak with youth.
Okay.
Because I think it is such a gift for them to understand astrology. And so many young people are getting on board with it. And it's a very, very ancient practice. Astrology, lots of people think it's very woo-hoo, but it's a practice that's been around for thousands and thousands of years.
Where did it originate from? Do you know where it came from?
Greece.
Okay.
Way back, it was used in many, the kings would call astrologers to give answers to certain questions that they may have. And so with the youth, like for instance, we've had a really a very big transit in January of 2020, just prior to COVID breaking out here. And it was a Saturn-Uranus conjunction.
What are you saying? What are you saying?
Well, I'm saying that I think it was, we knew that something was coming. I knew something was coming in March of 2020. I didn't know what it was. I couldn't have predicted
Like a global
something very
perspective.
big where perspectives
Really?
would shift. Yeah.
Is there another one? Is there another big astrological?
Well, they're coming all the time. There's big transits happening all the time. But I think what happened in January of 2020, it was kind of the big doozy, and so it laid the foundation for what's been happening all of last year and this year. And so when I sit with the youth and explain that, this anxiety that you're feeling,
Mm-hmm.
especially during the pandemic, it's normal.
Mm-hmm.
It's not easy, but it is normal. And I can show them in their charts where it might get easier for them or where the energy might not be so extreme, because there is a flow with the astrology chart. Like, you'll see it. You'll see what's coming. You can prepare for it. You can plan for it.
Okay, so if so a youth, what's the average age of a youth that would come to you?
Probably anywhere around 19, 20. That seems to be the ones that are the ones that are at a crossroads. They don't know what to do with their life, or they don't know if they should be going to university, should they be working. So when we sit, we can look at what's called your North Node. And I've shared that with Alexis. So we find your North Node. And for me personally, there's astrologers. Astrology is a practice that can go people have their own way of doing things. For me, the North Node is very, very important. I always try to find the North Node in everybody's natal chart. And what that will do is it will tell you what your soul's purpose is and what you are seeking in this lifetime.
That's extraordinary.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
So what could someone anticipate if they were to sit down to have a conversation about astrology? What would that look like? They would give their birthday.
So we would want to know, the day you were born, where you were born, and your exact birth time, if at all possible. And then what that will do is it will create a chart of exactly where the planets were. Mm-hmm. And then I would, if somebody knows nothing about astrology, what I would do is explain to them that there's 12 houses, and each house has a special job. Mm-hmm. And if you have planets in there, then it means something. And if you don't, it means something too. So we would look at where all the planets were on their natal chart. But I would really focus in on the North Node and any any special things like a stellium, which is 3 or more planets in one house, or conjunctions. And they're all big words, but I break it down to make it quite applicable to their life.
Okay, so this interests me. So for people that have ongoing challenges in life, sometimes they've gone to lots of therapy, lots of conversations, looking at all different things, but they can't quite seem to get out of that rut. They keep repeating whatever situation. Is that something possibly relatable that astrology one could look at and go, oh yeah, no, this is where it's going to change, and this is...
Absolutely.
Could you elaborate? This is fascinating. Could you please elaborate?
I have sat with people that in 1.5 hours doing a natal chart reading, they have made absolutely dramatic shifts. Because again, astrology is not judgmental. It is what it is. So when I can say, oh, you had issues with your father in childhood, because the chart will show that, I can present it in a way that I couldn't do in psychology, which would, in traditional psychology, it would be, let's look at your childhood, let's look at your issues with your parents, let's look at this. And it was great. There was a lot of progress happening, but I find in 1.5 hours or an hour of even just sitting with someone and explaining it, they have such a relief that, it's not them or it's not about them, that it is what it is. It is what it is. So the chart will, for me personally, I can track it. I've tracked my entire life and all the events that have happened, and they're all there. And I'm able to go, okay, so that difficult situation happened because it was supposed to happen.
And are you saying respectfully that these events were noted in your charts? It wasn't like, oh, well, that fits and that fits and that fits. It's more like, no, this is legitimately, you can see.
Yes.
So, okay, I was in a really bad car accident when I was quite young. So is this something, not that it says car accident?
No, it doesn't lay it out like that. But yeah, you can look at...
So yes. One could look at the chart and go, oh yeah, there's a big... What is it? How do you know that there's something of intensity?
Well, for instance, I had a woman who came and she had Saturn, which is the big taskmaster, the one that will teach you lessons, transiting her 7th house of marriage.
Okay.
Along with Uranus side by side. And so she wanted to know why her marriage was over. And will she reconcile? So whenever those two planets are transiting your 7th house, it's usually there to break down or not destroy, but break down what is there to teach you something or bring you to a higher level or to shift the energy. And so in this particular situation, no, she ended up getting divorced and it was pretty clear. But once she understood that and saw the bigger picture, that she didn't get caught up into the details of so much the marriage, she actually was able to look at it in a totally different perspective.
So that's what I'm hearing, is astrology, and given the awareness and the mindfulness of the particular astrologer, can create an awareness, a perspective, a different way of looking at things that can bring an understanding that, as we would say, traditional methods, like the counseling and the therapy, which are all very viable, that it's almost like, I mean, it's not, is it like a shortcut in a way? Or is
it's not a shortcut. It's just an addition. Like, I feel like I still have my psychology background. I still use that. I use the principles of that. But when I sit with somebody for an astrology session or even just a coaching session, it's gentler. It's just another way of showing the information. And so I try really hard to make it really relatable to the person and concrete and give them very tangible solutions to their life.
So what's the gift? Like for a 19, 20-year-old or a 40 or 50-something-year-old going through a divorce or life changes at 60 or 70, whatever have you, okay? What's the gift that astrology gives that person?
I think it gives them a sense of healing. It gives them a sense of feeling like things are going to be okay. Things are okay. Everything happens the way it's happened. The blueprint is already there. The soul has already chosen all these events. They're just all playing out. And so what's happening now with astrology, it's giving that person awareness. It's giving them another way to be an observer and look at their life with a different perspective.
Now, you said that this is something that you have had an interest in for quite a while.
Yes.
Why astrology?
I just got hooked on it. I had an astrology reading by a woman probably close to 20 years ago, and I was fascinated that she could tell me anything about my life based on these symbols. And after the session, I asked if she would sit with me for an hour to explain to me, what is this? I had never heard of it. She went through and she was phenomenal. And from that day on, I just went, no, I'm going to learn this myself and understand this for my own life. And it's great. I have 2 daughters, and I know when the moon transits through a certain house, I will tell my daughters.
Oh my gosh. I'm glad you're paying attention, because I would be just like, honey, it's the moon, don't howl.
Well, I just know with one certain daughter, I'll just say, okay, well, I can see the moon's in Leo. She's feisty today. Give it a day or 2, or she'll be in a certain, being a certain way. And I'll just say, oh, it's just give it a couple of days. It'll be fine. Things will clear. The energy will clear. So basically, astrology is energy. It's moving energy. And when you start to understand what that is and what the energy is, you can work with it. You use it to your advantage. And so that's what I like to do with young people, especially when they're like, I don't know what to do. I said, well, let's look at what your chart's showing you here. So we always find the North Node and say, like if there's a North Node, say, for instance, like my North Node is in my 11th house. And the 11th house represents friendships and community, the bigger picture. And so my whole life, I have wanted to be a philanthropist. Never understood why until I had an astrology reading. And she said, you will be a philanthropist. You have your North Node in the 11th house. So I am somebody that loves to be in service to others.
Yes.
I could have, so for instance, I have 2 siblings. No, they have no interest in that. They have a different North Node. And so we don't judge one as being better or, different. It's just, it is what it is. And so when you really truly understand where all of those placements are and how to work with it, it's enlightening.
Well, I'm curious. What is the greatest challenge that you've had in learning astrology? And what is the greatest healing that you have encountered with astrology, if you don't mind sharing?
Yeah. So probably the greatest challenge for me is it's very, very complex. Okay. And in studying it all these years, I am still a student. Every single day, I probably study 2 to 3 hours a day.
Oh, wow.
And I could keep going. And I think I will be a lifelong learner. So I don't know if it's a challenge, but it's very deep. And the greatest healing is just understanding the major events that have happened in my life and knowing that they were there for me to live out. And I see them completely differently now. Zero anger towards anybody about any certain thing, any event that's happened, complete forgiveness. So that is what it's done for me. It's offered me a way to have ultimate forgiveness, because I just believe it is the way it is and it plays out the way it plays out.
So because you were able to receive a different perspective on a life event, it shifted how you felt and how you responded and how you saw it.
Yes.
That's pretty impressive.
Well, thank you. Yes.
Yeah. Okay, you piqued my interest. Well, this is all really intriguing because I just don't understand it. I'm fascinated by this, but it's like a different language for me.
Yeah, it is a language for sure. It's a different language.
You mentioned something about last January 2020 and that things were aligned and that it was showing, I'm sure many astrologers, that there was a big event of grand proportions about to take place. Is there another one?
Well,
like another one of big, massive events?
I don't know if we would call them massive. I think what happened last January is Uranus and Saturn and the big guys were all in conjunction together, and that had not happened in hundreds of years. And so whenever that happens, we pay attention. And those planets, the outer planets, Pluto and Neptune, and the ones that are way out, they are the ones that change. They're not so much. They do affect us internally, but they're more of collective conscious shift in humanity. So my perspective on it is I believed we were shifting. That was the start probably of going from 3D more to 5D perspective and energy.
Wait, can you back it up?
Yeah.
So what's 3D to 5D?
Well, 3D energy is the energy that we have been living in most of up until I believe last year, which is more of a physical body. Mm-hmm. And 5D is going to higher frequency, higher energy. Mm-hmm. And so that had played out all of 2020 and for sure this year.
How has, you saying astrology has played this out, or?
No, I can just see that so the planets coming together.
Yes.
Create.
Okay.
An energy.
Yes.
And so we have been evolving as a human conscious, evolving to a higher consciousness. And so that has been playing out in astrology.
So are you saying that, if I'm hearing you, the way the planets have been lining up for the first time in maybe many of our lifetimes, first time, right? That it's allowed people to evolve in a way that they can move into a higher consciousness, and so the alignment of the planets, which is something that astrology works with, can somehow incorporate this.
Yeah, it gives you a picture of what's going on.
Gives
for sure.
You the picture.
Absolutely. Mm-hmm.
When is the next event that people should pay attention? When?
Well, I think people should pay attention to everyday events. Every day there's a trend. There's not one, there's nothing, that I can say, oh, this big thing is coming. But every day the energies, the planets speak. Like we have a Mercury retrograde coming up at the end of this month. Mm-hmm. That's huge. We have...
Well, what's a Mercury retrograde? And how does it affect us?
Yeah, well, Mercury is the planet of communication.
Okay.
3 times a year he goes what's called retrograde.
Okay.
So retrograde means he appears to be moving backwards in the sky, which he's not, but he will sort of stop, shift, and start to move backwards. And, people sort of fear Mercury retrograde as a time of being, oh my gosh, bad things happen, communication breaks down, don't sign a document during a Mercury retrograde, don't do this. But
what's the opportunity?
Yeah, that's the way I look at it. Mm-hmm. Is really, it's about being in awareness.
Okay.
It's about understanding that energy. So I love retrogrades because it gives us a chance to do everything that starts with revisit, reevaluate, reanalyze, reorganize. I love that. So it asks us to stop and take a look back. And so if you understand that energy and know, and so you would want to know where Mercury was going retrograde in your own natal chart, right? So anytime there's a transit, you always want to find it in your natal chart and see how it affects you personally.
Okay, so are we in a retrograde?
We're in shadow period right now. We'll go into Mercury retrograde at the end of September.
Okay. So
there's a shadow period prior to it. It's it's revving up, ready to go.
Okay. So then, when we come out of the shadow and go into this retrograde, then we would look at our astrological chart to get an idea of where we could revisit.
Where it affects you personally.
Interesting.
So whatever degree Mercury, and I don't know, I can't remember, I don't have my notes, but wherever it's going to go back, then you find that exact number in your chart. And for you, it might be the 2nd house of finances and money. And for me, it might be the 9th house of long distance travel and higher thinking.
Can I have yours?
And so you would personalize that and find it. So that's what I love about astrology. It's very personalized. So it will tell you. So no 2 charts are the same.
Okay.
No 2 people are experiencing the exact same thing.
When somebody is feeling confused, anxious, and they've tried the meditation, they've tried the long walks and the healthy diets and all the different things that someone might do. I'm hearing from all of this that a conversation with you would be very helpful.
Or any astrologer would be very helpful. Yes.
And that it would lend a different lens.
Absolutely.
And bring more clarity.
Absolutely.
And I would say it sounds like it can be very calming.
Yes. Yes. Reassuring, calming, peaceful.
So this is, I hope it's not too morbid a question, but I'm curious to know, is someone's deathing time, not that it would say yes on this day, but is there something like that might be found on the chart? Just like if someone was to be married or someone was to be potentially, in a divorcing, or are these sorts of things?
They
on the
are.
charts?
You would use what's called a progress chart, and that gets complicated.
Okay.
So I try not to go down that road.
Okay.
But I believe all the answers are there. Wow. Yeah. So I believe they're all there.
That's fascinating.
So I tend to want to sort of meet people where they're at.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And if they're struggling with, say, for instance, they're struggling with family issues,
Mm-hmm.
we can look at that in their natal chart and see if it has any answers around that and what they mean moving forward. Or if somebody's, like a young person is struggling, I don't know what to do with my life. Well, let's find your North Node and let's see where your soul's purpose is.
And this is something you've seen be very,
very,
very helpful.
Yes, very much so. Yeah, especially with the younger
Mm-hmm.
teenagers, or sort of the ones that have graduated, don't really know what to do. And I'll sit with them and I'll say, oh, you have your North Node in the 9th house of travel. Are you interested in? I love to travel. I want to be a photographer and travel the world. Great. That's what your soul's calling. So there are answers there, and it's just gentle questions that you can ask.
What a sensational gift that you bring people.
Thank you.
Wow.
Yes. Thank you.
I understand you have on, I think it's Instagram,
Yes.
Astrology with Mo.
Astrology with Mo, yes. I've just started up.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
Because I know you've had some really good pieces on there. So it's a really, Astrology with Mo, it's on Instagram, and it's a great way to learn a little bit more each day.
Yeah, I try to keep it very basic.
Yes.
To help those that are just sort of starting out.
Mm-hmm.
So I'll give little tips for the day, or what's happening, or transit that's happening, or asking people to find your North Node and do this. And so it's just basically helping them along the way, because it is a very overwhelming practice to start. You don't know where to start.
I can imagine. Well, yeah. I thank you.
Thank you
for answering my many questions about astrology and for bringing this continued healing to people through astrology.
Thank you.
Yeah,
Thanks for having me.
appreciate it. So there you have it. Astrology with Mo. Come and check it out. Thank you. Please like and subscribe below if you appreciated the content. And if you have any questions, you can contact us through westcoastwomanpower.com.